So, the second recording being about something that's, rather difficult, difficult to verbalize, difficult to talk about, difficult to have an opinion on, because, it's probably not going to be one of these topics that, people, when they're drinking a beer, are talking about. But we're going to talk about the free will and, the Stoic perception of the free will and how the free will, what it quite has to do with Stoicism. I found a pretty interesting article. It looks interesting. I haven't read it, but I'm going to read it right now. It is once again by the howtobeastoic.wordpress.com even. The link is going to be down in the description, and I do suggest, please check out the article. I'm just seeing that I do have some things there. I haven't noticed that. Anyway, I do suggest that if you do not want to watch this video, if you do not want to listen to the podcast, then please just check out the article. You're going to be way faster, I assume, and you're still going to have the benefits of knowing what is going on here. Anyway, the philosophy and science of Stoic free will. Time to take a look at the debate that never goes away. How is the Stoic idea that we can work to improve our character, or, which is the same, Epictetus' contention that some things are up to us and other things are not up to us, compatible with the also Stoic contention that we live in a universe determined by a universal web of cause and effect. In other words, how is Stoic quote-unquote free will going to square with their metaphysical position of physicalism? And moreover, hasn't modern neuroscience quote-unquote demonstrated that there is no such thing as free will? Let me summarize the answers up front, and then we will dig into the details with the help both of scholarly work on Stoic philosophy and scientific research on the human mind. So in a nutshell, free quote-unquote will is an awfully confusing term that should never ever be used again. Yes, I know it is in the title of this post. That's because I wanted to grab your attention. Instead, we should use the word volition, which, as we shall see in a moment, is both the best translation of what Epictetus means by the Greek term proheresis, as well as the appropriate technical term used by modern cognitive scientists. Moreover, the Stoics had a sophisticated causal model of volition. It may be good to reread this post on Chrysippus' metaphor of the rolling cylinder before proceeding further. I'm not going to do so, just going to read. Which turns out to be in a very good agreement with the findings of modern science. Yes, including the infamous Libet experiments, popularly by mistakenly assumed to demonstrate it scientifically that there is no such thing as free will. More on that below. Okay, let's get started. To begin with, the Stoics used two terms within the context of this discussion. So first we have hegemonikon and prohairesis. The two are often treated as interchangeable, but Anthony Long, in his excellent Epictetus, a Stoic and Socratic Guide to Life, see my two commentaries here and here, draws an interesting and useful distinction between them. Hegemonikon is the most common Stoic term, and broadly speaking, it is a faculty of the mind that has 4 powers, quote-unquote powers. According to this helpful article in the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, presentation or fantasia, impulse, horme, assent, zukatathesis, and reason, which is logos. The ancient Stoics thought that the hegemonikon resided in the heart, a notion for which they were ridiculed by Galen, Marcus Aurelius' personal doctor. Galen was right, of course, and I suggest that modern neuroanatomy locates the hegemonikon in the frontal lobes, the brain, quite, and not the heart. Yeah. The frontal lobes are areas of the brain that are particularly developed in both humans and other great apes, but interestingly, not so in lesser apes and also monkeys. The frontal lobes, one per hemisphere, are the largest of the four lobes of the mammalian brain, and experimental research has associated them with the following functions. The first one, reward, then attention, short-term memory tasks, planning, and motivation. They also allow us to project the future consequences of our intended actions, to choose between what seems to us as a good or bad action, to override and suppress socially unacceptable responses, and to assess similarities and differences between things and events. That sounds to me very much like what the Stoics were talking about whenever they used the term hegemonikon, usually translated as ruling faculty. So here is Marcus, for instance. Things stand outside of us, themselves by themselves, neither knowing anything of themselves nor expressing any judgment. What is it then that passes judgment on them? The ruling faculty. Yeah, the ruling faculty. It is ourselves. We are judging ourselves. We are hurting ourselves. Well, modern science tells us that the frontal lobes do not fully mature in human beings until our late 20s, and of course a variety of situations can impair their proper function, from accidents such as the famous one that occurred in 1848 to the American Railroad construction foreman Phineas Gage, to strokes, Alzheimer's disease, and various forms of dementia. Maybe also marijuana or weed or whatever. Interestingly, according to Long, hegemonikon does not mean rationality. It is a term that applies to the souls of animals who lack rationality as well as to human beings. Page 211, which is in broad agreement with the above-mentioned scientific fact that all mammals have this structure, albeit in a less developed form than in the great apes. The Stoics were also clearly aware that there are conditions in which one's hegemonikon is impaired by age or disease or not yet fully formed in children. Long insists, and well, if it is about actions that we are about to take and we are considering whether this is going to be turning out good or bad, then this might be one of the reasons why children don't really think about what they do. I mean, they do, as the older they get, the more they think about that. And well, it makes sense because this lobe obviously also kind of grows and or develops. But interesting, yeah. So what is the difference? One of the characteristics of the hegemonikon, as we have seen, is that it is presented with phantasia or impressions, both external ones from our sensory apparatus and internal ones from memory. Such presentation, according to Epictetus, is autonomic, i.e., it is not up to us. The remaining three powers of the hegemonikon, however, impulses, assent, and reason, are up to us. So we can think of prohairesis as the ability to reason and to give or withdraw assent to our impressions, thereby controlling our impulses. That is part of the hegemonikon. I will leave it to neuroscientists to work out exactly which structures within the frontal lobes are more concerned with reasoning and decision-making and which are devoted to sensorial inputs and memory. The answers are empirical in nature, but do not affect the philosophy at all. Incidentally, as Long points out, Epictetus is not alone here. Aristotle also adopted the term prohairesis to mean the deliberated desire of things that are up to us. Moreover, Aristotle too judges what he calls prohairetic disposition to be a better assessment of moral character than action, presumably because actions are not entirely up to us, only judgments are. Page 212. We are now in a better position to make sense of one of the most famous passages in the discourses. And I'm going to read. For a start, don't be carried away by the impression's vividness, but say, wait for me a bit, impression. Let me take a look at you and what you're about. Let me test you. Next, don't let it lead you on by painting a picture of what comes next. Otherwise, it is off and away, taking you wherever it wishes. Instead, confront it with another impression, a fine and noble impression, and dismiss this foul one. 11.18 or period 18, whatever. It is the hegemonicon that both presents us with. It is actually hegemonicon. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly, but anyway. That both presents us with the impression, say, of an attractive member of the other sex, and with memories to draw from of pleasurable previous sexual encounters, but it is our prohairesis that applies reason to the situation and denies assent to the impression. I am in a committed relationship, and I will therefore not pursue sex with another person on the side. That also makes sense of why Stoics and Epictetus in particular insisted that the only thing that are truly good or bad are our judgments. The impression itself is natural because it is a fact about the world and moreover is not under our control. It is us, though, the faculty of prohairesis, who attach a value judgment to things and events. Whether it is something good or whether it is something bad, we judge it. We give meaning to things. This is, by the way, what I meant by we give meaning to things. We create value, we create meaning. That attaching of a judgment is under our control, and so the only truly good thing is to have a well-functioning prohairesis, and the only truly bad thing is to have a malfunctioning one, which leads to the condition often described as amathia or unwisdom, which we have been talking about before. As far as I can remember. I do want to see how long this article is. There's quite some things left. Well, yeah. We're gonna go through it the next time. I'm gonna end the episode here. 12 minutes. Well, it's not that much, but I've recorded before, and so my voice is getting quite fogged. Anyway, I'm gonna see you the next time. I at least hope. I wish you the best, and hopefully see you soon. Bye-bye.